Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: doctors of Reddit. What's it like when you go in for a doctor's appointment? Do you and your doctor discuss what's wrong with you like it's a group project? Do you not go at all because you're your own doctor? Drive here. It is a bit dependent on the field of medicine involved. For example, I don't know much about neurological issues, so if I went to see a neurologist I certainly wouldn't be chipping in. For more generic conditions I have previously offered my thoughts to my doctor about what it could be. Ultimately I still go to the doctor as they can prescribe drugs / order tests for me that would be difficult / questionable for me to do myself. Your answer seems to be the most genuine and reasonable answer yet, Ty. His name isn't Ty. It's Dr. Big Mac. Doctor here, family medicine. I self-diagnose most things, but for my 1-year-old daughter I decided a while ago that I don't want to do that for her. So her pediatrician doesn't know I'm a doctor. I never told her. I want her to treat me like any other parent, and explain everything to me like I'm 5 years old. I'm afraid of being too nonchalant with my daughter's health, that I'll miss something, or the doctor assuming I know more than I really do. It's actually a strategy I've adopted since on myself. If I go to a doctor, say a gynecologist, for a routine checkup, I sometimes just don't say what I do so I can legitimately ask dumb questions about things that I should really know, or so that the other doctor won't leave out important info that they assume I know for fear of insulting me. On the other hand, my regular doctors do know, such as the gynecologist who saw me through my pregnancies, and that enables more complex and nuanced discussions about health decisions, as in debating questions and giving me options that he wouldn't necessarily do with it. He patients, BC he can be sure I understand the medical pros and cons well once I'm given a basic explanation. I wish I could do that with my kids. I am not a doctor at all, I am a sonographer and do ultrasounds. I work at the same hospital that my children's pediatricians group works. When my son was born in April he ended up in the IKEA. The fact that I knew everyone up there from scanning in the department was comforting. I know they are good people and practice well. At one point the IKEA doctor said, "Well, you know how that is," and I had to tell her, "No, I have no clue how that is. I don't do diddly squat with lungs. I know the basic anatomy and that is it." Which is true, lungs have air, so ultrasound doesn't go anywhere near lungs. She told me I was going to get the normal script from then on out, so don't feel insulted if she told me things I already knew. Nope, explain it to me like it's my first day ever setting foot in a hospital. Please. That way no one assumes someone picked up what was left down. If anyone wanted to better understand what a high context and a low context culture is and how they impact communication, these are excellent examples. Doctor here, neurologist. I'm not good at going to the doctor. I don't go often, but when I do I usually just STFU, especially if it's a field of medicine I have no idea about, like say dermatology. That being said, the doctor usually knows I'm a physician as well, and so the language terms to be more technical. I also find that we practice less defensively with each other since we can be more open. We could do ABC tests, but honestly what you probably have is X, so take this, and if it doesn't get better then we can do ABC. Real question is, do you understand the prescription the other doctor writes? Took me a minute to realize this is a handwriting joke. I was sat in a consultation between two doctors, with one needing an ultrasound. They knew each other through work already, so it was very friendly and casual between the both of them. The patient doctor trying to figure out what was going on the ultrasound screen, and the doctor was teaching him the bits he didn't know. The on messed with my brain when I got to doctor. Edit, as other users have pointed out, the intro also features in. So many double words it's cray. Doctor, gimme the news, I got a bad case of low VU. My mom's a GP and she usually just self-diagnoses most of the time, but will sometimes get a second opinion. She doesn't really go to another doctor, just calls them to ask about stuff. Her contacts are filled with all kinds of doctors. It's like a secret underground community. For stuff like getting ultrasounds etc., then yes, they do discuss stuff like it's a group project. How was it growing up for you? Did she get over every little ache and pain, or were you just told to walk it off because she's seen so much worse? Asking because I know experiences from both sides. My grandparents were both physicians and lived with us while I was growing up. Grandma was a pediatrician and grandpa was a surgeon. Any time I had an ache or felt sick, she would examine me, then go to her bathroom medicine tablet and bring back medicine in a little paper cup. It always made me feel better. I later found out it was always a children's Tylenol. She was faking me out with the placebo effect. If I was actually sick, my grandma would have my mom take me to another doctor, as she was no longer practicing and couldn't order tests or prescribe medication. My dad is the head of my local emergency department. So I almost never went to the doctor other than to get shots or physicals for sports or for my health checkup before college, but the general rule of thumb for my household was if you're not actively dying we aren't going to the doctor. He was just capable of doing most of it himself. One time I cut open my hand pretty deep when cooking and he sewed it up in the kitchen in like 5 minutes. Looking back on it, those days were pretty crazy, but the stories he brought back from the are much crazier. I'm a doctor, and sometimes I have other doctors as patients. For the most part they are pretty good patients because they can give a good description of their symptoms in a way that's useful to me. They usually ask good questions and are well equipped to have an informed discussion about their diagnosis and treatment. Sometimes it's hard for me to dial back my patient talk where I simplify medical terms for lay people. Sometimes it's challenging if their area of expertise is totally unrelated to the issue at hand and they don't recognize their limited understanding. The worst patients are those who have just a little medical knowledge and think they know everything. Some version of, my aunt is a nurse, and she said I need a whole body MRI for this runny nose. As far as self-diagnosing, I usually deal with my own minor medical issues. If I noticed signs of something more serious, I would go to someone else. As a veterinarian, many of my worst clients are nurses and doctors. Lots of questionable home diagnoses and treatments. Yeah, people and animals are pretty close, but we're not the same and medicines don't work 100% the same. I agree about having difficulty dialing back the patient talk though. These are folks that can understand medical terms, and I don't want to be demeaning, but I've got my dumbed down spiel about things and it just flows out. To be fair, I recognize that I'm probably annoying to my doctor too. Although when I went in for surgery last year I had a great time chatting with the anesthesia nurses about protocols until they drugged me. Or, really. I usually let a new vet go on inpatient talk for a couple minutes and eventually interject to let them know I'm a pathologist, and usually they relax into shop talk. My cat's new dermatologist even, in her words, nerded out and gave me a big lecture on the anatomy of the feline middle ear. She kinda lost me, it was over the phone, thanks COVID, but was super interesting. I'm also a vet, and I usually don't even tell my doctors what I do. I once let an endocrinologist go through a whole explanation of what hypothyroidism is to me because I didn't want him to accidentally skip over something that's different between humans and cats. Turns out it's pretty much the same. And in the end I don't have it. It depends on what I'm going in for. As a background, I'm an oncologist, so I've trained in internal medicine before. For most internal medicine type stuff, I don't bother going in unless I need something that I can't easily get for myself, for example, labs or images. For specialty stuff I wasn't trained in, I go in and try to give them the best history I can, but let them do their own thing. Internet high five from an oncology patient, thanks for doing what you do. Chiming in to agree with the other poster. My son had cancer and his doctors were amazing and kind. You really look to your oncologists for answers, and sometimes, hope. So, thank you for what you do. Doctor here. In general, we are not good about going to the doctor. For me it's physicals about half as often as recommended, and that time I had strep a year and a half ago that didn't resolve with whatever antibiotics I had in my medicine cabinet. When we do go in, it is like a group project. We usually hash things out together, but ultimately I am going to defer to someone with more expertise than me in that area who can make an objective decision. When I go to the doctors it's also like a group project. I let everyone else do the work and reap the benefits. I hope you get some doctors in here to give personal answers. Paul Calathi did address this a bit in his book When Breath Becomes Air. At first in his cancer treatment he was very involved in the decision making, and the way he described the conversation with his oncologist was more like a collaboration. Later, she reminded him that he didn't have to participate in the decision making and that he could just let her be the doctor and focus on himself. He ended up taking her up on this offer. So even between the same patient and doctor, the relationship varied. One of the best books I've ever read. I get involved in the management. I let the doctor seeing me lead that, unless they missed something huge and I would just double check. The main difference is I can present the whole history and relevant info in about 30 seconds flat, and the doctor with that info can just give me the management plan in about the same time. Fastest consultations ever. Very methodical. The main difference is I can present the whole history and relevant info in about 30 seconds flat, and the doctor with that info can just give me the management plan in about the same time. Oh man, I'd like to be able to do that. I have a pretty extensive medical history, and with new MDs I go in with a type up, but I'd love to have an elevator pitch down. I think it takes me about 2 to 3 minimum currently. 2 to 3 minutes is great, Acewell. It beats the patient who has a 10-minute slot and tells you about their pet cat for the first 5 haha.